Okay, today we are going to be repairing the screen on an iPad 9. We've got model A2602. It's one of the worst ones I've seen. There's glass shards everywhere. It came in an OtterBox case, and a child that had still been using it because it had a protective screen. As you can see, it's still turning on. It's some of the tools actually that you're going to need. Clear plastic packing tape if the screen is severely cracked, as this one is. We're also going to use some picks, and then we have various other pry tools if we need them. The main thing to be worried about here is getting glass in your hands, because this glass is super sharp. Also, I have a heat gun here, and that is going to be where I'm going to start. We need to tape this up to get it off as best we can in one piece, but I'm going to warm it up with a heat gun, and I've got this set to 572 degrees. I'm not spending much time in any one spot and just work it around. We'll definitely need to apply more heat, but we want to be sure that we do a little preheating to start softening up the adhesive underneath of the glass. You want to be careful that you don't put too much hot air inside of the machine. As you can see, there's some openings. You don't want to get too much heat inside, because you could risk overheating the battery and having a bad problem with that. So just quickly doing some preheating around the edges, not spending more time in any one place than other, except maybe a little more down at the bottom. So we got that preheated a bit. Let that cool off. And I'm just going to start taking this packing tape and running it over top of the entire screen, in this case because the entire screen is cracked. If only a portion of the screen is cracked, you would only need to do this in a portion of the screen that is cracked. So get this tape on here, and I have a little smudger to sort of flatten it out and adhese it to the glass as best as it possibly can be. And I'm back putting these pieces of tape as close as I can next to each other to kind of form a full seal around the entire iPad. On the last piece, what I'm going to do is line it up with the other and let it overhang a bit. This is in really bad shape. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of glass inside, and hopefully it hasn't scratched the LCD screen underneath too much. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is to just cut away this excess tape using a hobby knife, and I'm just sort of tracing along the edge of the iPad. I don't know if this step is entirely necessary, but I don't want to have any excess tape, so it shouldn't take very long at all. You want to be careful you don't scratch up the bezel or edge, metal edge of the iPad. You just want enough pressure just to cut the tape. I'm going to go all the way around where the excess tape is. And again, it shouldn't take too awful long, and we should be able to pull all of that off. Want to be careful just in case you didn't make a cut deep enough somewhere that you don't pull towards the inside, because you'll rip the tape back off the glass. Side right here is a little not cut. Just run another score down that, and hopefully we got it now. Yes. should be able to get this off the top. That, and we've got that. Alright. Now that it's basically all taped up, go back over it with this mudger here and try to get out as much of the air holes as you can. This one's so bad that it's actually cutting the tape because there's just so many fractures in the glass. Really don't want to get that stuff in your hands. Okay, and as we can see, the new screen here, all of our connections are on the right hand side. So the iPad is laying, this is the top, this is the bottom. We want to open it like a book this way. So let's get some more heat. You got to be careful with the heat also here, because depending on what you're using, whether it's a heat gun or a hair dryer, this can absolutely melt the tape, and we don't want to melt the tape off. Usually when you have a single crack or something along those lines, this procedure is much easier. This one is in really, really, really bad shape. I cannot believe that they were still using it. Just applying some heat, again, just to the edges here. You can see some of the tape is kind of starting to melt. You're going to get a little bit of shrinkage and a little bit of wrinkling, but you just don't want to like ignite the tape or melt it to a point where it's not going to do its job any longer. A little bit on the middle, just heat that tape up a little more. Okay, this is not going to come out at all in one piece, I already know, but we will see what we can do. Main thing here is just as you're working to work nice and slow, and so you don't cut yourself. Because I promise you, if you get a piece of this tiny shard in your finger, it's going to live there for a month, and it's not going to feel good. Some people like to wear gloves when they do this. I particularly do not. I don't like gloves on my hands. It makes my hands sweat more than they do already. Alright, and now we're going to try. I don't think the suction cup's going to even get anything at all. I think we're going to have to go straight to picks. A little bit of 99% alcohol. Just clean this, and then I'm going to take the alcohol and wipe down that tape real good, just to be sure it's as clean as I can have it. But as you can see, it's good to keep a wet rag, wet towel, and sort of collect the glass shards that fall off as they fall off, so you don't cut yourself. Now, I don't think I'm going to get a grip on this, but we're going to try anyway. And we're getting a little one, so maybe we'll get lucky. So basically the idea is to first break the adhesive around the entire left side. Yeah, I don't think we're getting in there, but if that is the case, there, I got under it at least. So we're just gonna go around the edge. I did get under it. There's not much left holding this together, so. If you're lucky, you can get just enough in there to get under the glass like I just did. Once you're under it, just leave whatever you get under there. A lot of the times what we use a series of like these guitar picks. Man, this thing is bad. we're gonna have to probably go in here and pull this all out shard by shard. Basically, you can see there I go breaking it. Basically, when you get it started, you should be able to get under more of it like this and sort of just run down that line. This is such bad shape that we're definitely going to have to go back and leave that one. So you want to keep leaving picks under. I definitely recommend wearing safety glasses also if you have them. If not, just be careful. And we're just working it up as best we can, but it's just playing tough. You got to be very careful that you don't, the LCD screen is directly behind this glass. So you don't want to push too much stuff in too far, because the adhesive will rub off. It will rub off of the glass and onto the pick, and then you rub that on the LCD screen underneath, and then you're going to have a really hard time getting that off of that screen without scratching or damaging it. So we want to try to stay as close to the outside as we can. We're making progress. Better progress than I thought we would, honestly. So look, we might have the gist of it now. And that a lot of this stuff peeling off is because I applied that heat earlier, which again is very, very helpful in busting that adhesive. We got this home button in here too. We want to be careful that we get the home button. We will need to reuse the home button. This is such a mess. Because of the Touch ID, when you replace your iPad screen, you would also 100% want to be replacing or keeping the same home button for the Touch ID. Otherwise you will lose Touch ID functionality, and if that's something that you use, you definitely don't want to lose that ability. Okay, so there, we've gotten some of it, but there's so much glass left over. Alright, the first thing now that I've gotten some access to this screen, and as you can see I put my hand on it like so we're gonna have to get that off, but that's not nearly as bad as trying to get off adhesive. We'll get a little more heat. Now we don't have any tape. This should hopefully come out a little bit easier. Basically at this point I'm just trying to get access to the screws for the LCD so that I can get this LCD screen out before we remove the rest of the glass, to hopefully prevent further or any damage to this screen. So I'm just popping off this little bit of glass up here. It's hiding the screw from me. Sometimes little pairs of tweezers. You just want to be very careful you're not pushing inward or on down into anything. There's a lots of camera and sensors and lights at the top of this thing that you do not want to damage. Come on. Just looking for a screw here. And again, the major risk right now is damaging the LCD any more than it already has been. Again, glass shards everywhere. Small Phillips head for these screws. This one is hidden under a piece of film. I'm going to go right through it, and that's not important. Move that fan. So we got one, We got two. This one here is hiding under a piece of glass. We're gonna get some of that out of the way. Get this one. And then we got one more that's also hiding under some glass here. Just get that out of the way. Okay. Okay. And 4. Now, and you want to be careful because there's cables running from this underneath the LCD, but the LCD also has cables running to it. We still have a bit of glass in the way here that we will have to get out. Getting leverage is always challenging. There we go. Just want to be gentle. You don't want to torque the screen or put any pressure on the screen, or we will indefinitely destroy the LCD, and that is counterproductive to what we're trying to do. So now once we basically got it out, there we go. So this needs to come up and forward at the bottom. Bring the bottom a bit forward. You're going to need to hold this while you get the 3 small. So this is a one-handed job. You should definitely probably prepare for this moment because it's not easy to hold this screen and work with one hand. I've done a bunch of these, so I'm just very used to the procedure. Plastic tweezers if you got them, just to avoid shorting anything or causing any damage. We're going to take this plate off, and then we can immediately pop. You can see it, but there's 3 clips right here. 1, 2, 3. Alright, and the first thing I'm going to do is find a safe spot to put the LCD so that no damage can come to it. And now we have to remove the home button, which is under this black tape. Again, I'm using plastic tweezers to prevent, there's tons of circuits right here. We want to be very, very careful that we don't damage any of the circuits or damage the iPad's motherboard. Okay, that just has a little lift on it. We can pull that out. Not sure what the fuck this is. We have a little piece of rubber there. We'll just pull out. There we go. We've removed some of the screen. There's still much more to get out here, but at least now we don't have to worry about damaging the LCD. And this should be quite easy to get the rest of this off. So get a little more heat. Again, don't want to apply too much heat to any one area. as it can damage the components and the micro components. So again, just a bit of heat. If you didn't catch earlier, my heat gun's set to 500 degrees, 526 I do believe. Not for any particular reason other than that seems to be a good temperature for work that I do here. And if you're just starting out in computer repair, these can be some of the most intimidating physical repairs just because of the unknowing what's inside and what can be damaged, and honestly a lot can. So you definitely want to just take your time. Using the adhesive so strong, you can actually a lot of the times can get a hold of it. It'll pull off sort of like a string. And again, a little heat helps that big time. But yeah, there's just glass shards everywhere now. Very, very kind of dangerous for the hands. If you're noticing that stuff's not moving and it's not coming out easy, you probably just need another bit of heat. Another blast of heat here. And again, it's better to underheat than overheat. So do a little bit, see if you can make some progress. And if not, try a little more heat. Again, you'll find that the biggest challenge is finding leverage to get hold of things, get a hold of this tape. There's really nowhere to get leverage from, so you have to get creative. Again, just taking our times. Everything's so busted up. We gotta kind of almost get one shard out at a time, it seems like. Gotta have patience. Don't rush. We're almost there. You wouldn't want to damage anything now. Okay. We're getting there. We're getting there. A little at a time. And again, this is one of the worst ones I've ever seen. So usually it's not this much of a challenge to make this repair, but this child that owns this broke the thing, and then because of the fancy OtterBox that they had on it, they kept using it and just smashing it more and more and more and more. And so it's just in about as rough a shape as it could possibly be. Shattered in every single spot of the screen. Okay. Alright, so we're making progress. We only have the top left now. Stand this guy up. Give it a tap. Again, a wet rag to sort of collect this glass so that you have a glass-free work area. The glass will accumulate underneath of the iPad, and then you'll find that you can actually start scratching up the back of the iPad also. Alright, so let's get the rest of this glass out. We are in the home stretch. This here, I do believe, is the one of the sensors underneath here, so you definitely want to take extra care when getting the glass off of here that you don't pull anything out with it. So, just not super hard, just super time consuming. With these ones that get broken this badly. And there's just glass everywhere. So we got that. Main thing is if you get that, the way you know you got it good enough is that you've actually ripped that adhesive tape off. You want to get down to the bare metal. Sure, this stuff's just not. It's just not staying hot. This adhesive that they use is really tough stuff. You definitely don't want to be attempting this repair without some sort of heat source, heat gun, hot air station. Again, I think you could definitely use a hair dryer, but hair dryers don't get so hot, so it might take a bit longer to heat the adhesive under the glass with a hot hair dryer. I'm just getting this last couple pieces here that don't want to cooperate. You'd be surprised how much force you have to apply to get under some of this stuff. That adhesive is seriously no joke. No joke at all. As you can see, I'm putting a lot of force in this. Try to get under that adhesive. I recommend using plastic tools, but sometimes the plastic's just not cutting it. You've got to get something metal. But if you do use this, just be very careful. Camera's right here. You don't want to scratch that or move that. What you can do, and there goes a shard. See? And that is exactly, and that thing is going to bleed bad. And that's exactly what I was saying to be careful of right there, folks. You see? And then that stops the whole process for a bit. We got ourselves a computer shop famous Band-Aid. And we're gonna get back in here. It's funny, I literally was just about done with this. So you can, as you can see, it's never too late, and safety, 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 safety. Because although it's controlled and it's not the worst cut in the world, it doesn't feel very nice. And if I needed to use my hand, like to play guitar or something later, it wouldn't be a fun experience. So just something to keep in mind. Don't underestimate how dangerous this can be. And there we go. So once I got all the glass removed, what I'm gonna do now is give this another tap. Make sure there's no glass on the back of it. I have here a soft wire brush. I'm gonna go in and just try to get any excess glass that's floating around inside there out. So basically getting the iPad glass free from all the debris that's in there. We don't want that floating around or leave it in there for the customer to take home. They'll hear it clicking around in there. Hear that? You can definitely hear a piece of glass rolling around in your tablet if your repair technician was to leave one in there. So we're going to make sure we get all that out. I'm pretty sure we have at this point. Another little tap, put that in a safe spot, and then we're going to go ahead and clean this area up real good. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to come back and we'll move on with the repair. Next step is to get the home button off of the old screen. I've placed the old screen in a plastic bag to prevent any more glass from flying all over the place. Basically, we can peel this ribbon cable back extremely slowly and carefully. In this case, this is already sort of broken away. I'm using my pick to get under these very small cables. They have adhesive underneath of them holding them down, so you'd have to take really special care to not bust the cable while you're trying to remove it from the glass. They're really tiny, not much to them. So this is how mine came out. You can see I've still got a bunch of glass attached to it, but we are now officially done with the old screen, so we're going to get rid of that. Now we have our new screen, which already has a home button installed on it, so we're going to remove this home button so that we can use our old home button. I found the best way to do this is to take a hobby knife and just simply go underneath of the two sides of this metal bracket that are holding in the home button, and we can just easily boop, pop that off, and then we can remove the old or the new home button because it's no good to us, and then we need to get this old home button back in place, and I think we're gonna just need to get that little bit of glass off of here. Actually, no. I just need to get that off. Now, I know it's hard to see what I'm doing right now, but it is quite tiny. I'm trying to be sure that I understand what I'm looking at here, because I don't need this old bracket, but I don't want to bust that cable. And it is glued with adhesive stripping to the back. Take that off. You see that piece of, this tiny piece of gold right here is actually part of the cable. And you want to kind of get under it without damaging it. And again, I've found that the hobby knife works pretty much the best for that, because it can be nice and flat, and it's tiny, and it cuts. And there we go. So that's the old home button mount, and we're just gonna get rid of that. And then we need to get rid of this excess glass around the home button itself. So I'm just using a tiny hobby knife to bust away all these little pieces of glass while maintaining the adhesive around the home button and leaving that on there so that we can repurpose it in the new screen. So again, guys, this is usually not this long of a process, but because this was so badly broken, there's just these glass shards everywhere. And anywhere there's some kind of adhesive, it's just sticking right to it. So I think I've gotten it all off now. Oh, one little piece here. So when you break your screen, it's best to get it fixed right away, because you risk damaging the machine further. Alright, and once you've gotten that out, place that down. You want to make sure that this gold, the little flap with the gold on the back of it, you do not want to touch down yet, because that's going to sit on the back of this post that holds down the, and I think right here you can even see that it has a, actually that's not right, disregard. So they just use this strip adhesive, which I don't find to be very effective, so I do not strip adhese mine down. I actually will use super glue gel. I found to be the best gel control. Hopefully I have some left. And then you just want to make sure that this cable is, that the button is sitting in a way that the cable runs basically straight off of the side. You do not want that to be in the way of the screen, obviously. And let me see if I can't get a dab out of this guy. I don't know if I have much left. If I have any left. It does appear that I'm out of the gel control. This will work just fine as well. And then one last thing I would definitely recommend, that you put this on in the spot that you expect it to go, and then test your home button to make sure you're getting, that you can feel that click. Because if you can't, there's something wrong, and in this case I cannot feel the click. So we want to be able, we would definitely want to know why that is. Okay, we have a click there, so let's just double check. So we're going to reuse the old one, because the old, here's something else to take note of that these manufacturers do not address. This is the new back that's supposed to hold that button, and as you can see in the middle, it's flat. The old button holder, we'll call it, has this little nodule that's actually protruding out. You can just see it. Sorry, it's not super in focus, but you can see that knob, and with this particular button we actually will need that knob, and the new part did not come with that knob, so we're going to use the old one. And you know what that means? More glass to cut away. So we'll do that real fast. And again, that's why you check before you glue, because if I had glued that, I mean, it's not the end of the world, it's just wasting more time. So now that we got the glass off of there, we're going to pop this guy on where we think that it goes, about there. There. Yeah, this one's going to have to be spot on, because it has to fully line up with that button. And I think that's where we want it. So see, here's another interesting thing that happens. Sometimes the screens are a little thicker or a little thinner than the last ones, and we'll find that the button, there we go, won't have any room to play, and it'll actually be like almost permanently pressed in, and you don't want that either. So if you're not hearing, I don't know if you can hear that, but absolutely a click there. So now we can go ahead and glue this while also checking to be sure that we have the click. You don't need a ton of glue. It's going to spread a little bit, just enough to get that pad covered a fair amount. That's stringy stuff. Alright. It's best to use some pliers, or some pliers, some tweezers to get that guy picked up since it has the glue on it. And then you only have a little bit of time. You want to make sure that we get it in place and we have click. Which we do. So now I'm going to give that a firm press, and we're going to give that a few minutes to dry. Give it another check after you press it while holding you want to hold that the plate in place while doing that, so that you know so you don't push the plate off like I just did. Alright, and we're going to give that a few minutes to dry. We're going to hold it for probably about 30 to 60 seconds to be sure that it actually adheres to the glass and doesn't peel back off. Alright, so we're going to let that sit and dry for a bit. Okay, now that we've gotten that done, the last thing to do with the screen is we just want to make sure that we get that gold plated sticker down here where it's supposed to be. This is now nice and dry, the super glue, so the button is now functioning as it should. We're going to bring this guy back over Just do a quick cleanup. Again, this is 99% rubbing alcohol. 99.9%. I got a gallon jug of it because I use a lot of it. But you can certainly find that in smaller amounts. So there's still glass shards and stuff, some gunk, and just basically debris that we want to make sure we get off. If there's any debris on the rim of this ledge, obviously the screen's not going to fit on. So not sure you can really see so good, but there's still a few pieces of glass that are coming off of the ledge, and we just want to make sure that we've got a nice clean surface for the new adhesive. Because there's no screws holding the screen on, if you have any part of the screen that's not well adhered, a lot of the times you'll find that it will start to separate down the road, and your iPad or your customer's iPad will most likely be brought back to you for additional repair because it's coming apart. Okay, so now that we've cleaned it up pretty decently, now it's time to sort of put everything back together and test that everything is working as it should. So we're going to bring the screen over, glass rather. A little bit of tape on here. We're going to take that off. And just like reverse order that we did before, we're going to take, I don't know if I can get a better view of this here for you or not. But we're going to put the home screen cable, home button cable back in, reconnect that, and then we're going to connect these two cables back. We are not going to remove the adhesive on the screen yet, or the glass yet, because we want to be sure that everything is working as it's supposed to. And these can be a little bit of a pain to get reattached, but they can only fit in there just right. So if the thing's sitting a little crooked, you might find it'll be a pain to get those snapped back, but once you hear that little click, you know you got it. And I think so you can sort of put pressure on them, use your finger as a grip and move it side to side to see if it's not moving in any direction, then you know you're good. I'm gonna bring our LCD back over, and I'm going to use a microfiber cloth and basically gently wipe the screen off. We will have the opportunity to clean it a little better once it's inside. And then we're gonna set this guy back in, reconnect the LCD, and again it can be a little fun. Let's try to connect this stuff back together. Okay, we're gonna rest that in there, and we're gonna turn the iPad back on. Basically at this point we want to make sure that the digitizer is responsive. Okay, so I don't know what the password is, but it seems to be functioning as it should. Got a little super glue residue, but that's only on the outside. But everything seems to be functioning. as it should. I can move that around. Alright, so I'm confident that this guy is going to be just fine. We'll turn it back off. So now, all we have left to do is to put back the protective plating that holds all of those connectors down. Give this screen a decent cleaning. And then get the oh, I just lost my train of thought. Shit. So all that's left is to put the metal plate back on underneath of here. And again, anytime you're handling the LCD, you just want to be extremely careful. Metal plate. And basically just kind of get that in position. Don't forget that we have to hold the LCD while we're doing this, so it does make it a bit challenging. I find it the best to use your other hand if you can and position the screw onto the screwdriver. And I don't tighten any of these down until I have them all in, so that way I know that it's going to be aligned right and I don't have to unloosen any additional screws. So now we've put all 3 screws back in position, and we'll go ahead and tighten them down. Put this back in position where it is supposed to go. We never did test that home screen. Alright. Never did test the home button, I mean. So now I've just squirted a little Windex onto an Q-tip. On the edge of this, you'll see some padding. If you get alcohol or Windex or anything really wet on that, it'll sort of turn into a powder, and then you'll have a real hard time cleaning the screen. So I suggest not going in with a paper towel or something like that. Likely gonna make it a lot harder for you to get that off. Certainly use a microfiber towel, and again, trying to stay away from the edges and trying not to apply too much force, as you can absolutely damage the screen by a little, just the wrong amount of force on there. If you have anything that's not coming off, you can spray an additional spray Windex onto the microfiber just to sort of have some additional scrubbing power. And again, staying far away from the sides as possible. It's not ideal to get anything on these because they again are not very fun to clean. It could take quite a bit of attention to get this thing back to a somewhat clear state. And again, not applying too much pressure does make it a bit more of a challenge. It's not an elbow grease situation. It is a be very careful situation. Some round circle movements sometimes will help clear areas of the screen you're having trouble with. And basically, once you get it to a clean state, we can go ahead and put the screws back in it. Now this particular iPad is lucky that it does not have more permanent damage to the LCD because of the condition that the screen was in. I don't know what I just wrote on there, but so, you want to be careful when you're retouching with the other parts of the towel that you don't get the Windex back on there. Alright, and that's looking pretty darn good. So now we'll pop the screws back in to the four corners of the LCD without touching the screen at all. And there is magnets on some of these iPads, so you want to be sure that there's not a lot of magnetism in this screwdriver, and it's causing it to not want to go in the hole correctly. It's pissing me off. Fuck. Yeah, okay. Sheesh. It should not be that much of a challenge. I'm missing one of my good screwdrivers right now that wouldn't have these types of problems if I had it. But I am not sure where it ran off to. Okay. 2. Now when we screw this one down here, it's definitely going to pull a little bit on the home button cable, so you want to make sure you have that scooted as close as it can be when doing this bottom right hand screw. And we're gonna get that guy pumped in. And then again, I like to do a couple tests, so I'm gonna turn it back on now that we're done with the LCD and just be sure that it's still working as it should. And so long as it is, we'll remove the adhesive on the back of the glass and go ahead and permanently put that in. And as we see, Now I'm not positive that I have this home button working. I can feel it clicking. But it is locked out, it's not happy. So I'm gonna call the owner and get the pin and be sure that everything's working. So I'm gonna pause this and I'll be right back. Okay, so I got the login for this bad boy. I have confirmed that the home button is working. It just didn't work when it locked us out of the system. As you can see, boop, goes back. So I'm gonna shut this guy off. I'm gonna seal this up and get it back to the customer. So again, since we're in the very ending final stages, you just want to make sure you're being extra careful that you don't break anything further than it already is or was, and you want to be careful that you're not getting anything on the LCD screen, which a little debris. If so, just a quick little dusting with the microfiber cloth will do. And then we'll just go ahead and start removing these adhesive strips, or the adhesive strip protecting. stickers, if you will. Oh, come on. The guy's just playing hard to come off there. A little bit of the was over top of it, so I recommend getting all easy stuff first. The strips that are easy to get to. The strip that runs underneath of the cables will be the most challenging to get off, and I'm gonna show you how I do that. So this strip is the one I'm talking about because it goes underneath of this. This actually should be folded over and stuck down there. You're gonna find that this side is can be a real problem. Alright, so what I like to do to get this off, I'll take it and go underneath of the screen. And then try to grab it from the underside like that, and that's gonna be your best bet to get that off without damaging anything, because it's already underneath of all of the cables. So next up, you want to make sure you've gotten 2 corners in so that it's nice and tight. And then get the other corners in, because these things do just fit just in there, so be careful that you've got it in before any adhesive starts to stick. Now this guy's going back into an outer box, so it's really not the end of the world if some of it doesn't stick, but you definitely want it to adhere as best as it will. If for some reason a part of it will not stay down, what I'll do is I'll remove the screen and I will apply super glue very carefully. And usually this area is where, if it's gonna pop out, it's gonna pop out usually here where the cables are, because there's a little bit, there's actually a cable that could run under that lip a little bit there. But let's turn it on, and there you have a completely replaced screen in an iPad 9th Gen. Feel free to leave any questions or comments down in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm going to be putting out a bunch more of these videos as I'm able to, as they come into the shop with different items to be repaired. So thanks for watching, and good luck, guys. Be safe.